Hey guys, it's Snowbiter, and this is a replay I had with the Batchat on Karelia. The Batchat has always been one of my go-to tanks to play. It was my first tier 10, and I think it's my second most played tank, so I've had a fair amount of experience with it. And since recently Marks of Excellence were down for a while on the NA server, I ended up playing a decent amount with the Batchat, and I had this game on Karelia, which was a pretty interesting game. So I thought it would be worth posting. It's a bit long, so I may try to fast forward in a few places to shorten the length of this video. But it's a pretty interesting replay, so I thought it would be worth sharing and commentating over. I always find Karelia can be a bit dangerous to play on a medium tank because most of the time I like to try to go south and take the hill on this map when I'm in a medium tank, but if you commit to the hill and the enemy team has more tanks there than your team, you're kind of screwed because there's no easy way to retreat from the hill without at the very least taking a lot of damage, and more often than not, if you try to run away, you're going to get yourself killed. So looking at the team compositions is really important playing a med on this map, and you also have to pay attention to what your team is doing and what gets led on the enemy team as you're going to the hill in order to decide whether or not it's safe to actually commit all the way to the hill or not. So if you look at this matchup, it's all tier 10s on each team, and my team actually has a medium tank advantage, so in theory, we should be able to win the hill if all our meds go hill, but obviously the issue is that even if you have a med advantage, you can't assume that all the meds in your team are going to go hill, so you have to watch which direction they go at the start of the game, and then adjust your own play based on that. Now, with most medium tanks, I would usually just go all the way south through the 9 line, and then once I get to that corner around G9 or so, depending on how much support I have and what gets led on the enemy team on the opposite corner, I would either keep going up the hill or stop and try to get shots on the enemy tanks trying to push up the hill on the other side. With the Batchat though, first of all, the way the timing works out, I would still have a few seconds left on my reload when I get to G9, so I wouldn't be able to punish the enemy meds going up the hill if I were to stop at that corner. And on top of that, the Batchat isn't a good brawling tank, so if I were to commit straight to the hill through the 9 line, in a matchup like this where I'm expecting that there's probably going to be a fight for the hill, it would be very easy in a tank like the Batchat to lose a lot of HP in that fight, and even get myself killed trying to get my clip off. So instead of going toward the 9 line, what I decided to do is to head toward the hill through the middle of the map around F7. And my plan is that if the enemy Batchat tries to go up the hill through the same area, then I can prevent him from doing that, which would hopefully help my teammates fighting on the hill already. And if there's nothing on the enemy team contesting the middle, which is what I think is more likely to happen, then I should be able to get up the hill without being lit, which would allow me to flank the enemy medium tanks already on the hill and hopefully get a clip off without them really getting a chance to return shots on me. And then I could run away off the hill to the north, whereas if I were to approach the hill from the south, I would kind of be stuck there. Even if I were to get my full clip off, then I'd be completely vulnerable and have to wait for 35 seconds before I could do anything again. So anyway, I'll finally get this replay started. That was a bit of a long intro. And like I mentioned earlier, I'll try to fast forward where I can so this video doesn't become super long. So I'm heading toward F7, and like I talked about earlier, I want to pay attention to where the meds on my team go, because that'll partly determine whether I end up going up the hill or not. And if you look at the minimap, you'll notice that the E50M platoon on my team is going north, so already I'm thinking that it's probably going to be tough for my team to win the hill. Now, as I get to F7, it doesn't look like the enemy team is contesting this area, but I actually spot a few of the straggling heavies and TDs on the enemy team trying to go south. And I actually reload before they get out of my line of sight, so I decide to put a shot into the side of the 183 and the side of the E3. I do get lit there though, which means that I really shouldn't go up the hill now, or at least it would be very risky for me to go up the hill while I'm lit. So I turn around to back off, and I get a bit impatient and leave cover before I go dark, so I took a hit there from the enemy Super Conqueror. But looking at what happened on the hill, even if I hadn't gotten lit in that situation, the only tank on my team that actually committed to the hill was the Object 140, while the enemy team had 3 meds and an IS-7 commit to the hill. So even if I hadn't gotten lit there and had the option to go up the hill, it really wouldn't have made any sense for me to do, because there was really no chance that I could have won that fight. The 140 got completely overrun, and I would have been too late to help him, and there was nothing I could do to really swing that fight in my team's favor. So I'll actually fast forward a bit here, as I've taken up a pretty passive position right now. As I mentioned before, the Batchat isn't a good brawling tank. You really want to focus on trying to flank with it, but at this stage of the game on a map like Karelia, it's really hard to do any flanking, especially without hill control. So I decided to sit back near my team's cap for a little bit and just see if I could catch into the enemy tanks trying to poke off the hill. But I pretty quickly realized that I wasn't going to do anything productive sitting back there. And I wanted to try to help my team gain some map control in the north, so I decided to move up here with this Leo and see if we could flank the Super Conqueror. But as we're moving up, an E100 gets lit in F1. And since I know there's also a Sturv and E50M back there somewhere, I decided not to commit to the flank because I didn't want to risk losing any more HP at this point in the game. Then I saw that the enemy 907 had been lit on the hill, so I moved back a bit to get him into my view range. I put one shot into his front, and he tries to use that rock as cover, but actually backs up a bit too much, so I'm able to get a second shot into his engine deck. And even though he goes dark there, I took a third shot, hoping to maybe get lucky, and since I knew he was a one-shot, I was thinking if I got lucky, I could maybe take him out. Then the enemy Batchat got lit running away from the hill, but I didn't have any good shots on him. Now, my team took out the Super Conqueror that was in the north, but I really don't want to push down the one line into an E100 at full HP and a Sturv sitting back in H1, because that's a recipe for disaster. So I decided to start moving back toward my team's base, and I want to kind of play that area where the Super Conqueror is. I was hoping to, since I know the 907's a one-shot, maybe get him lit so that the tanks that my team has in the north could maybe get shots on the stuff on the hill. Because now that we have complete control of the north, I can play this area of the map knowing that I actually have some solid support. I took a little bit of a risky route to actually get to the middle. It was dangerous of me to go out in the open, but I got kind of fortunate that the 907 missed me, and then he actually got lit himself, so I think the Leopard 1 on my team was able to put some shots into him and actually take him out. Now, because the enemy Batchat has left the hill and gone to that spot in D4, I'm pretty sure that the only tank the enemy has left on the hill is at 62A, so I'm thinking that I might actually be able to push up the hill and take him out, because he should be kind of isolated. I don't think he really will have any support in the position that he's in. The thing is, I'm worried that the Batchat will light me if I try to push up the hill, so I want to try to take him out first, or at least help my teammates take him out. So I'm able to put one shot into him while he's out of cover. Then he backs up behind that rock, and I'm thinking that since he just got shot, he's probably going to wait a few seconds before peeking back out again. So I decided to take advantage of that and push up the hill to kill the 62. So I move up and catch the 62 a bit by surprise and get the first shot off. His first shot only tracks me for no damage, but it kind of messes up the bloom on my gun, so my second shot whiffs, but fortunately I still have 2 shots left, and I make them count, and I get the kill. He did get one shot into me just before he died, but I only lost 300 HP in that engagement, so it really was a pretty good trade for me, and now I've actually regained control of the hill for my team. My team is kind of in trouble though, because we've lost everything else in the south. There's only a 62A and C0 that's between 4 or 5 heavy tanks in my team's cap. And I know that now that there's nothing really engaging the enemy tanks in the south along the 9-0 line, probably some of those tanks are going to turn around and go back up the hill because they know that I'm up here. So I know that I really can't stay up on the hill. I would end up getting pushed by, like a 183 or something, which I want to avoid. Then I saw that the enemy PZ7 was trying to push up the 0 line toward our 62, so I decided to rush back to try to catch him while he's out in the open. Fortunately, he's pretty low HP, so I only need one shot to take him out. And I get back just in time to set up my shot so that he drives right into my crosshair and I get an easy kill. Now, it doesn't really look like the tanks behind the PZ7 were following him toward our base, so I don't feel like I need to stay in that corner to watch the 0 line, so I head back to the middle to try to support the tanks we have in the north. The enemy Batchat is still in a position, though, where he could light me if I try to move up in the middle, so my main concern is to try to take him out. As it turns out, the enemy E3 was pushing up the 0 line, but it's too late for me to do anything about it now. And the Batchat gets lit in the middle, so I focus on trying to shoot him, and he stays out in the open just long enough for me to aim in and get the kill shot. Now, I want to try to push back up the hill, and you can see there in the kill feed that the 183 just killed the E5 in my team, so I know the 183 has to be on the hill, but he has a pretty long reload, so I'm going to take advantage of his reload and try to push up and take him out. As it turns out, the Type 5 is also up on the hill, but he's not paying attention to me, and I know the 183 is on reload, so I just push out around him. My first shot tracks him, then the terrain kind of messes me up there, so I'm a little delayed in getting the second shot off. And now I'm not so certain if he's reloaded or not yet, and I don't want to risk it, so I just wait for a second. And the Leopard 1 is able to get the kill shot on the 183. Then it looks like Artie actually splashes the Type 5, so I'm able to use the final shot in my clip to take him out as well. So for the second time now, I've managed to retake control of the hill. Now, looking at the minimap, the enemy E3 that had pushed up the 0 line is now totally isolated from the rest of his team. And the Leopard 1 was actually just pinging his position on the minimap, so it looks like the Leopard 1 is going to go after the E3. And I want to help him out with that, so I'm going to head back toward our base. I decided to go back through the middle instead of up the 0 line because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to engage the E3 until I was reloaded, and there was a chance if I went up the 0 line that if the E3 was still in D0, he could be facing south and that he might catch me out while I was still reloading. So I head back to the middle and prepare to flank the E3 with the Leopard 1. I spot the E3 as I'm kind of out in the open, but I try to use the terrain to make sure that he doesn't have a shot on me. And the E3 ends up turning all the way around to get a shot on the Leopard 1. And once I see him facing the Leopard, I just rush straight at him to try to get on his side. My first shot missed. I probably should have waited a bit longer before actually starting to shoot, but now I have easy side shots, and the Leopard gets a shot in as well, so I'm able to finish him off with the final shell in my clip. Unfortunately, the 57 Heavy got taken out in the north, so my team is still down a tank, but all things considered, we're in a much better position now than a few minutes ago. And now, even though we're down a tank, we do have a mobility advantage over the remaining enemy tanks, so I want to see if I can try to find where they are and then either spot for arty or just use my mobility to flank them and isolate them and take them out one by one. And I'll actually fast forward here because there's a bit of an action for a couple of minutes as I search for the remaining enemy tanks. Now, I decided to go north here because I was thinking since the E100 and E50M had pushed in that direction to kill the 57 Heavy, there was a pretty good chance that they just stayed in that same area. And plus I felt like there was more cover in the north, which would allow me to maneuver around better and avoid getting caught off guard. The south is much more of a corridor, and so you can kind of get yourself trapped if you're not careful in that area. Regardless, though, I'm being really cautious in clearing the north because I obviously don't want to make a careless mistake at this stage of the game that might cost my team the win. So I'm trying to basically think about the different spots that one of the enemy tanks could be playing, and then I want to make sure that I try to clear those positions before I actually advance forward. Now, at this point, I've cleared out pretty much all of the north, so as it turns out, it doesn't look like any of the remaining enemy tanks actually stayed in this area. And now I'm thinking that they're probably just camping in their base. I think it's pretty unlikely that they actually push south, and especially since the Leopard 1 is up on the hill and hasn't lit anything. So I'm expecting that as I head toward the enemy cap, that I'm probably going to light something near the cap circle. At first I was thinking that the Sturv might still be in H1 watching the 1 line. So I looked to try to spot that side first, but I don't light anything there, so I decided to do a little spotting loop on the edge of the cap circle. And I light the E100 behind that rock in K2. And he actually doesn't light me, which means the enemy team still has no idea where I am. And the arty splashes the E100, and then the Leopard finishes him off, so we get a free kill on one of their remaining tanks, which is huge. Now, as I turn around to reposition, I spot the T-92 in K4, so I stop to try to take him out. Unfortunately, my first shot hits the dirt, and even though my second shot connects, he's able to get into cover. Meanwhile, the Sturv and E50M are actually pushing the Leopard on hill, which is kind of surprising. But I'm too far away to really help the Leo out, so I decided to just go after the T-92 and make sure that he dies. I'm hoping that the Leopard can kind of do what he can against those two tanks, and he actually does manage to kill the E50M. So I drop off the cliff to go after the T-92, and I wanted to try to kill him without him getting a chance to shoot me, so I took the first shot on the move, and unfortunately it bounces. But luckily his snapshot completely misses, so I take my time with the second shot and make sure that it kills him. Now it's just the Sturv left on the enemy team, and I decide I want to try to fake him out because I don't want him to be able to run away and hide from me. So I make it seem as if I'm going toward the middle and then turn around and head back toward the K line. Even though I'm on reload, I'm pretty confident that I should be able to kite him if I run into him. And sure enough, he actually was trying to go back through the K line, and before he's able to get into siege mode and shoot at me, I can get on his side, and now it's easy for me to just circle him, and I get the final kill. So that's the end of the replay. It was a bit of a long one, but now I'll show you guys the post-game stats. I got an ace tanker for this game. I did just over 6,000 damage and about 2k assist damage along with 7 kills. And more than anything, I thought this game would be good to post because I had to do a lot of flexing over the course of this game. I think there were a lot of moments where I made some important decisions that helped my team win. So hopefully this video gave you a bit of a sense of my decision making and thought process, especially when I'm playing the Batchat. And again, if you've managed to stick around all the way through this commentary, I appreciate it. It's a bit longer than the ones that I usually try to post, but Anyway, thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later.